Παρακαλώ πολύ τους συμμετέχοντες στο δεύτερο πάνελ να έρθουν να λάβουν τις θέσεις τους. Λόγω του ότι είμαστε πολύ πιεσμένοι σε χρόνο, ανάμεσα στο δεύτερο και στο τρίτο πάνελ, ένα διάλειμμα που προβλεπόταν για καφέ θα το φάμε. Οπότε θα είναι συνεχόμενα δεύτερο και τρίτο πάνελ.
So, good afternoon to everybody. Kalimera. I have written in Greek, how do you say dear sisters and brothers? Unfortunately, technology does not work. It went off. So, I remember it was Kalipitu, something like that. So, okay. Dear sisters and brothers, thank you very much for inviting the General Workers Union, my union, to your 100 years anniversary. We are becoming ourselves 130 years this year, and we have a common, kind of shared common history in many things, in the defense of workers' rights, of course, but also in the defense of democracy and the promotion of democracy, and the fight against fascism, for example. And we have suffered, both organizations have suffered from repression, and now this just reminds me about repression and repression of trade unionists. Sister Susana Camuso just reminded me that the former president of the Korean Trade Union Confederation was released after he has been in jail for more than 900 days because of organizing assemblies, and he has been released on parole. So it's not a very good news that somebody is released on parole, somebody that is innocent and should have never been sent to prison. But of course it's good news for us trade unionists and for an organization like yours who has been fighting for freedom and for democracy. It's very good news to be here to say it. I have on the panels, we are going to do something a little bit fast because one of our panelists, Gabi, has to leave. So we have been in the morning talking about the future of work and many things related to the future of work and the future of trade unionism. So I'm going to introduce first to the panelists, Gabrielle Bishop, which is known among trade unionists as Gabi Bishop. She's the president of the workers group of the European Economic and Social Committee. She's coming from the Metal Workers Union of the DGB. After that, she went to the DGB, where she was director for European matters. And she is a feminist. That is something that every trade union leader should be, but not always happen. And she's also a very positive person, which is also that every trade union leader should be, but not always happens. So in that sense, she's getting both of the things, and that's very good. Then we have your colleague, Christos Goulas. Jesus, Christus, sorry for making the joke, but this is something that doesn't happen very often. Yeah. He's the director of the Labour Institute for the Center for Development of Educational Policy of the ΓΣΕΕ, and he's a political scientist, with a postgraduate studies in lifelong learning and a long experience in capacitation and training. We have here Sister Esther Lynch. She's a bachelor in management and law, member of the ETUC Secretariat, and among other responsibilities, she deals with health and safety, so we will pose some questions on health and safety for her, and the European Pillars of Social Rights. And last but not least, we have Steve Turner, Assistant Secretary General at Unite and a spokesperson on Europe for the TUC. He's also the responsible, or is dealing with a very interesting, really interesting initiative called Unite Community, and maybe he will have the chance to tell us about that. So we have been listening how this robotization, digitalization, new world will transform production and the organizing of work and business. It's very interesting to a point. I'm coming from Spain, and when I'm listening to all these new technologies, new world, new opportunities, new challenges, at the same time that I'm listening about this, I see in the streets of my city, in Madrid, people that is using again their strength, their physical strength, as it was being done in the 19th century. When I'm looking at the people that is delivering packets for Amazon, they're going with this huge bag where they are putting kilos on the back of their shoulders. I'm seeing these people delivering pizzas in a bicycle, using their legs, and it's very beautiful to tell to people that they are doing something for the environment. It's very environmental friendly work because they don't use the motorbicycle, they use their legs. And they use their own bicycle. In the old days, it was the company that pays for the motorbicycle and pay for the petrol. Now they are using their legs, and it's like 200 years ago when the horse is useless, you can just get rid of the horse. And actually, the legislation is being done so it's easier for the companies to get rid of the horses. So we are facing many challenges that we will speak about. There are things we can talk about, like the working time, for example, and the opportunity that this gives for a better life balance, profit sharing, the amount of workers that they will lose their work or not. There are many things we can ask them about. So I'm going to start with Gabi, that has to take a plane soon. So after she will speak, she will leave the panel. And I would like to ask her, actually, because I'm sure that you have heard a lot about this social pillar, European pillar of social rights. It has been mentioned this morning. And I don't know if in your union happens as in my union, that people is still not very clear what is this social pillar. This is Greece. You are very accustomed to pillars, columns, and all kind of architecture things. But this social pillar is still a little weird for some of our members. And I would like to ask Gabi, actually, in this context of digitalization and new future of work, do you think the social pillar is really offering an opportunity for people to compensate the possible challenges that everybody's talking about with the new work?
Yeah. Hope my microphone is working. Is it? Yes. Let me tell you first, everyone here, how glad I am to celebrate with you the 100th anniversary of your organization. I think it means it is a stable column, the GSEE, in the Greek environment here, and I think this is very good. Before I come to your very concrete question, also, I thought coming here that the Greek people are the experts in transitions. And I think we are living in a transitional period at the moment. And these periods in history, sorry, I just lost my microphone, but I will hold it so it's not such a problem. There are also periods where the relationship of power is changed. And I think this is what we can watch here with digitalizations, also that the employers are trying to use it to shift the power game between workers, trade unions, and their organizations. And I think a good example, it was discussed this morning, is the platform work. It is just another level of forms of precarious work. We already have different levels of precarious work, and a lot of young people are affected by it. And with the platform work, as you said, it's again a shift of responsibility. It's not very clear anymore who is the employer, what is an employee. They also shift all the costs and the risks to the employee and to the person doing the work, actually. And I think here the social pillar, for me, is an important opportunity to address it and to stop it. We have to stop it. And even that still platform work in comparison to other forms of work is small. If this model increases, we would have a huge problem. Therefore, I think it is very good that the Commission did some small steps in the right direction to propose, as it was mentioned by Maria Rodriguez this morning, the proposal for that everyone has a decent work contract and gets it immediately, and that everyone has access to social security. But as you mentioned also, that the shift of cost, for example, for your working gear, for your working equipment, a lot of other things are not addressed yet. But I think it is very important that we continue here and that we make sure that Europe has only a future if it is able to provide good work for everyone, and that we will not have 2 second and third class workers in Europe. But for us in the Economic and Social Committee, we discussed very hard with the employers. And we said this is not only a question of fairness, this is a question for the future of our societies. And this is also a question that is key in the acceptance of the European model, of the European common market, and it will harm you too if Europe is not able to address it. And one concrete proposal, I think we as trade unions, we should make it very strong in this social pillar, is that the coverage of collective bargaining is shrinking everywhere with huge attacks. You in Greece experienced this, I think the hardest, but we have attacks in many other countries too. So we have to use the social pillar in the European semester to monitor the coverage of collective bargaining. And we have to make sure that it's not only the 3% deficit they are watching, but that they watch the development, and that in the national recommendations they analyze how it's developing in Greece, in Spain, in Germany and other countries, and say, okay, you have to achieve better, you have to do better, you have to improve your collective bargaining, and that they will give also recommendations to these national governments how to do it. And I think the same. We discussed it in the E2C for years with the minimum wages. What we need on European level, and we can use the pillar for this, is to monitor the development of minimum wages in Europe. And we agreed on, after hard battles, and I know my organization was not the easiest in this debate, that the 60% median wages for us are the point where we say this is the point we have to reach, which we can monitor and which we can show that the debate, if it's a pillar or a socle, I don't give a damn how they call it, but what I want and what we want is that we have concrete steps, concrete improvement of the living and working conditions of people in Europe, and this is where the social pillar can help. I know we had in the beginning, the pillar was proposed, some doubts, but then we as trade unions, we saw the opportunity to use this debate and to come up with concrete proposals which we otherwise would not have. So in short, yes, I think it is an opportunity, but only if we really take it and if we really push together in all countries, all trade unions together for these concrete steps. Otherwise it will be promises, 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 and not enough will move. And I think the message of this morning was we have to really change course in Europe. We have to change fundamentally, and we can use the pillar as a tool to do so.
Do you have 1 minute for the last question? You have 1 minute?
Yes.
Yeah. Because we are in a country that, as mine, as Esther's, have been especially damaged by the semester that you mentioned. Yeah. And you mentioned how the European pillar should be used to compensate. When we are talking about the organization of work and the organization of industrial relationships, to which point can we really talk about this, and how can we work in the present to shape the future if we still have an instrument as the semester that can jeopardize any effort that trade unions can do, or social dialogue actually can do, in order to improve the life and of working people?
I think we have to be very clear that we have our own concept how the European semester should be done. And we as trade unions, we did fight to say, okay, they had an economic semester. And this had the wrong indicators and the wrong questions in many parts. Some were also improving, I would say. But we demanded to have an economic and social semester. And this is where we have to push for, and to say we will, in the future, we will only accept it if you really change it. And if not, it will be a dead end. And to be really honest, I mean, so far, and I quote Juncker here, who, when he was not yet president of the Commission, was in an event of the Hans Böckler Foundation where we discussed European policies, and he said, whatever your governments tell you, whatever they impose on you, so far the European semester is not binding. We pretend it is, but in reality it is not. It lives from the acceptance, and it lives from the... I think you now have everyone awake after the lunch break, which I think is good. But I think it is not binding yet. But I have to say, I have a very big concern. And I think we as trade unions, we have to be very aware of it. When you saw the leaked plans of the European Commission, it is very clear that they want to change the European social funds, the cohesion funds. They will reduce it. So we heard this morning they are increasing divergence, but they are reducing the money for convergence. And at the same time, they want to say, okay, the European semester is not binding yet, really. So what they want to do is to give financial incentives. So they will create new funds, they will give it beautiful names, I'm absolutely convinced, because they are very good at that. And then they will say to Greece, okay, if you do this reform to increase your pension age, you will get European funds. If you don't do it, you will not get them. They will go maybe to Spain with saying redundancy policy, if you do this reform. So we have to be very clear here and very concrete that we will not accept this, but that we insist that, for example, if you want to do a monitoring of minimum wages, if you want to introduce a minimum income scheme, you need the necessary resources to fund this in the European semester, and to say, don't play games with us. Here, we are the workers of Europe, and we want Europe to improve the working and living conditions. That's the promise of the treaties. The promise is not to have the most sexiest common market in the world with 500 million people. The promise is that we use this common market to improve the working and living conditions. And this is the difference we have to insist on. And this is the opportunity we have to use with the debate on the social pillar.
Thanks a lot, Gabi. And now she has to leave, so thank you very much for your time and patience. Yeah. I would like to ask Steve now, because when we are talking about the challenges ahead, you're coming from Britain, who has not only the challenge of industrialization and the new forms of labor, of industrial relationships and so on, you also have the challenge of Brexit ahead. It's in a more global society, economy, and world. There is one part of the European Union that decides to be a little bit less global in a way. But everybody's talking about the necessity that has, the need that has the trade union to be strong and well organized in order to cope with the change and the future. And in that sense, the initiative that your union has, Unite Community, it's really interesting. Really organizing and taking together people that is not only workers, not only members of the union, but opening the union to the entire society in order to get stronger. I don't know if it's something that is might be interesting to speak about in here. Or,
yeah. Okay, yeah, I will. I'll definitely come back to Unite Community. It's a fantastic initiative that we've launched inside our union. First off, like everybody else, I think, I just want to thank Jesse for the invitation to speak today, and Yanis and others. I wanted to congratulate you and offer the solidarity of the Trades Union Congress in the UK for 100 years of struggle. And it is a struggle, and it will continue to be a struggle. And it's called a struggle deliberately, because it's not a walk in the park. It's not a stroll, this, that we're engaged in. This is a struggle against the interests of capital. And we learnt that very early on in our 150-year history as a TUC. So we bring you our solidarity in your 100th year, of course, in the same year that we celebrate our 150th anniversary as the Trade Union Congress in the UK. And while you've struggled against adversity and war and, of course, dictatorship, and now the worst of the practical measures of austerity, well, we all face those challenges with you as well. So we bring that absolute solidarity. For us, Social Europe collapsed, really, 20 years ago. And this is really about power and organisation on the back of the trade union movement. Capital only responds in a class way to power and organisation. And I think where we miss the trick in Europe is organising ourselves more effectively at a grassroots community level, in workplaces, to build real organised working class power that forces politicians and our employers, of course, to take the interests of labour more seriously. And we want more from the social pillar and the ESOP, for instance, than monitoring progress. We could sit here and tell you now that we ain't going to see any progress in terms of decent pay and conditions across Europe, because employers are not seeing it in their interest to do that, and we're not strong enough across much of Europe, of course, to force the employers and our politicians to do that. And in any event, do we want to outsource our politics to politicians? This is our struggle. This is a struggle, first and foremost, of trade unionists, of our class. And that's the message that I really wanted to bring today. We've all seen the collapse of social Europe following the financial crisis, of course, the politics of austerity, the attacks on our trade union movement, on the institutions and structures of collective bargaining. We've seen the cuts to public budgets. We've seen the forced sale of our public utilities and our assets, the privatisation and outsourcing of our public services, and of course the attacks on our welfare states, our social security systems, our pensions, longer working time, not shorter working time, and lack of regulation in so many areas of employment. And for us, in the face of that attack, and this is an attack, what's our role? What's our role as trade unionists? I think we need to look in on ourselves and ask ourselves that fundamental question. Because for us, it's our role, our duty, to stand up to advance the interests of our members and our class nationally and indeed internationally, of course. And that's an incredibly difficult challenge. And we understand it when you have the full weight of the state, of the troika in your case, of course, and indeed global capital waged against the interests of our class. And what I wanted to talk about and what I wanted to focus on was the role of collective bargaining in that. And for us, collective bargaining is about power. It's about organisation. We don't have sectoral level collective bargaining in the UK. We have voluntary trade union membership and we have collective bargaining at a workplace level. And we win agreements on the back of power and struggle at work. And that depends on how well organised we are as a trade union at work. But that's what we do, because without power and organisation, we beg. We beg politicians to deliver on our behalf, or we beg industrial capital to deliver terms and conditions improvements for us. Well, for us, we've been begging for too long, and it's time's up. And not on our watch, as Sharon quite rightly said, are we going to see further continued attacks on our movement, not just on terms and conditions of employment at work, but on our communities, our families, our movement, our global position around the world, of course, must improve on behalf of working people. So we've seen this deliberate, systematic attack on trade unions. It's been a political attack, and of course it's been an attack by global capital as well, to destroy all of our structures, resulting in growing poverty, economic and gender inequality, of course, job insecurity, unemployment. We see the same picture wherever it may be, not just in Europe, but across the globe. while, of course, politicians have given us individual rights. Individual rights while they take away collective rights to organise and to build real, solid, meaningful power. And for many workers, those individual rights are then seen as being at the behest of a political movement, of a government, and not necessarily a game that's been won by trade unionists and collective identity, collective action. And that's the big structure for us. That's the big challenge for us. We need a strategy, internal and external, of course, that delivers political freedoms for us, that delivers structures, so that we can then deliver as a trade union movement. And it's a very interesting discussion we're having inside the TUC in the UK at the moment, with a radical socialist Labour government in the waiting, under Jeremy Corbyn as the new leader of our Labour Party in the UK. We're looking for new collective rights, new collective freedoms, and that door's not just open for that discussion. There is no door. There is no door. We have a complete open access to our Labour administration, who are working with us on new rights, a duty on the employer to bargain, not a right for us to collectively bargain, a duty on the employer to collectively bargain in good faith to reach agreement with trade unionists, a right to access to all workplaces and a right to organise. And we are talking about sectoral bargaining, of course we are, but sectoral bargaining is difficult for us. Who are we bargaining on behalf of? Who are we accountable to? Are we the saviour that rides over the hill, that saves the unorganised mass of working people by a sectoral agreement when we have no power, when we have no organisation? We sit down with employers and do they fear us? No, they don't very often. They laugh at us, just as politicians laugh at us. So of course we want sectoral bargaining, but we want sectoral bargaining based on the principle of open access to organisation, trade union organisation and collectivism, because it's only by acting collectively with power that we bargain with strength in order to win on behalf of all of our people. And we understand there are different models across Europe. We understand that the UK model is distinct, very different, certainly from much of the European Union. But that role for the state in labour regulation is incredibly important. Wealth distribution, we talk about the fourth generation. Where's the debate about the shorter working week, about early retirement as retirement ages increase? Why aren't we using the fourth generation, automation, artificial intelligence, innovation, new technologies, to take away some of the burdens of work, to allow us to live as citizens within our societies, doing 3-day weeks, sharing work, but of course sharing the wealth of that technology as well. And the redistribution of wealth is going to be the biggest question that we see in the next decade. How do we squeeze from that capital, from the political class, that wealth that we create to ensure that we can live our lives at work with dignity and into retirement with dignity also? And I guarantee you this, without strong, well-organised, collective trade unionists, it won't be our class that will benefit from that fight. So that's our struggle, and that's the message I'll bring to you from the TUC.
You were talking about sectorial social dialogue now, and this is a question for Esther Lynch, because the ones that were here this morning probably heard your minister talking about the good relationship that the Greek government was having with the European Trade Union Confederation on collective bargaining and social dialogue. And probably to some of you, it was a little weird because you know better than anybody else the situation in this country about that. So actually this is a question for Esther. I mean, is it something we didn't know about, or something that maybe will not that well expressed, actually?
Thanks for that question. Just want to say it's always a privilege representing working people and their unions in the ETUC, but I'm particularly happy as an Irish woman to be here with all of you. Many of you I've worked with during the very difficult times when we were facing them in Ireland, and the exact same you guys were facing here. And I was coming in and I felt like saying, you know, despite everything that was done to all of us, we're still standing. You know, and I really felt that, you know, that this was like a moment, you know, to say, you know, we're back to winning. You know, we're going to get back to winning. I was a little bit surprised at the comment from the minister. And I felt there was some truth in it. And the truth is that we have been working to make sure that every government in Europe, including the Greek government, understands the importance of sectoral-level collective bargaining for a fair recovery. You can't get a fair recovery unless people have fair wages, unless, exactly as Steve said, workers are able to get their fair share of the profits they create. And if you wait until you do it company by company by company, that is just going to take too long. So we've got this recovery, you know, you've got this wave of the recovery, so you want very quickly to be getting the fair share for workers, and sectoral level is the way to do that. Where she was wrong, though, was to say that she has a good relationship with us, and she should at the same time have recognised that there is no difference whatsoever between what the ETUC has been telling her and what the GSEE has been telling her. And that is, so she should have recognised that in the discussion, and certainly, as your president quite rightly said, exactly that, there is no difference. And Luca is available on the texting, and I was texting that to him, and he said, make absolutely clear to the conference for the ETUC and from him, in that in every single discussion we have had with your minister, it's a simple message. You need to sit down with the GSEE and you need to work out how you put back the legal framework supporting sectoral level collective bargaining. That's on the record. I can't make it any clearer than that, and I hope that message goes out very loudly from this room to the minister. And of course, so there are four important reasons for putting back the sectoral collective bargaining. First is wages in 9 member states are still lower than they were before the crisis. So although the recovery is working for some people, the way I describe it is you've got luxury yachts which are raising, but all our ordinary folks, our boats are still very much tied to the bottom. Productivity has increased by 4 times compared to what wages are. So the old idea that if you have productivity, well then people's wages would rise because we'd get our fair share of that, is also no longer guaranteed. So many working poor in Europe as well. Folks for whom, as soon as they put up their hand and say, I want to join a union, the employer will just say, well, do you now, there's no work for you tomorrow. And that is very closely linked to the other piece that's part of sectoral bargaining, and that's fair terms and conditions of work. And you were rightly highlighting some of those in the arena of health and safety. And I was talking to a union rep recently, and what he described to me was a worker is working in a bank. And this worker had been engaged in a discussion with a guy who was finding it difficult to repay his loan. And this had happened over a long period of time. And the worker had been given a script. And so, you know, he phoned, you know, have you got the money? And a lot of you would be representing workers on both sides of this story. The worker, during the discussion, the guy who owed the money said, you'll be happy to hear I've finally got a job. And this is in Ireland, so the guy said, I've finally got a job. And the guy who's working for the bank said, that's really good news, I'm so happy for you, you know, things are going to turn around for you. And that worker working in the bank was brought in and disciplined because he went off the script. And what that story explained to me very clearly is that humans are beginning to be seen as a bug in the system. And our humanity towards each other, either as customers or as workers, is beginning to be, you know, set against each other. So it used to be, it was worker set against worker. But now it's worker set against worker and customer. And what really brought that home to me personally was I recently went on a holiday. And I went on a tour. And the guy who was doing the tour said, will you be really sure to log on and give me a good rating? So I did. I went online and I gave a good rating. And then I wondered, well, was that actually a good or a bad thing to do? Because isn't it hard enough doing a day's work without facing somebody at the end of that day giving you a rating online? And I thought about, like, as trade unionists, how easy would our job be if at the end of every meeting, the people who were at the meeting gave us a rating good or bad, smiley face or unhappy face? And I think all of this is giving rise to a culture of fear, where employers are now using fear as a tool of management. And it's fear of losing our jobs, it's fear of the rating that we're going to get, it's fear we're not doing things fast enough, quick enough, we're being monitored, so to such an extent that now we have talking to unions in the Netherlands who are trying to work with workers who are getting a chip implanted in their hands. So something belonging to the employer implanted into your hands. So I think this discussion of the world of work, for us to be able to bring about the type of change and protection we want for workers, really does need for us to be able to break free of only being able to bargain with the employer in the workplace. We need to be able to stick together. We need to be able to stick together at sectoral level, and moreover, we need to be able to stick together cross-border. And that's my last point. One of the discussions I'm really interested in us all having at the level of the European Union is to look at how can we use where we're strong to help us bargain where we're weak. How can we ask for the unions, for example, in Sweden or in Germany, to sit down with their employer and say, we want you to bargain with the unions in Greece. We want you to bargain with the unions in Ireland. That it's no longer good enough to us that you ignore the unions there. Now, I'm not suggesting that the unions in Germany or in Sweden would do our work for us. I'm only asking that they would demand that the employer recognises the obligation to bargain or the right to bargain throughout Europe. And I'm trying to lead that discussion at the level of the ETUC. So I hope that we'll be getting very much involved in that in June. So I'll finish there.
Okay. I will get now my headsets to speak to my colleague in name, Christos. We were talking about protecting workers, and when we are also talking about fair transition to the new labor world that we have ahead, it's obvious that training, education, vocational training are very, very important issues for that, also for workers to be protected. But it's also very important to think or to take the perspective of how important is also collective bargaining when one is talking about education and training, how to prepare and how we better should negotiate with employers and with the governments in order to shape the present, in order to shape the future. Sorry. So this is the question I have for you to start, Christos. What do you think about that? What's the importance you think that it has, education and training, to shape the future of workers?
Καταρχήν το θέμα της μετάβασης, όπως πολύ καλά το είπες, το κομμάτι της μετάβασης και της δίκαιης μετάβασης που αρκετοί ομιλητές σήμερα το έβαλαν, το θέμα πολύ σημαντικά. Εμείς το ζούμε το εργατικό δυναμικό της χώρας. Το ζει έντονα τα τελευταία 8 με 10 χρόνια που ξεκίνησαν τα μνημόνια να λειτουργούν σε πλήρη ανάπτυξη στη χώρα μας και να φτάνουν σε επίπεδο εργατικού δυναμικού με μεγάλη έμφαση. Η μετάβαση, ας το πούμε, σε αυτό γίνεται σε δύο επίπεδα. Το ένα είναι σε επίπεδο ανεργίας. Η ανεργία, όταν μπήκαμε στα μνημόνια, ήταν η γενική ανεργία γύρω στο 9%. Αυτή τη στιγμή είναι πάνω από το 27%. Είμαστε η πρώτη χώρα ανεργίας στην Ευρώπη. Ολόκληροι κλάδοι κατέρευσαν, ολόκληρες επιχειρήσεις επίσης κατέρευσαν και άνθρωποι οι οποίοι έμειναν άνεργοι δεν είχαν κάποιο δικαίωμα, δεν είχαν κάποια κοινωνική προστασία σε κανένα επίπεδο για αυτή τη μετάβαση ανάμεσα στην εργασία και στην ανεργία. Ένα ακόμη δείκτη θέλω να χρησιμοποιήσω για τη μετάβαση αυτή είναι η ανεργία των νέων, των ανθρώπων οι οποίοι μόλις βγαίνουν από τα εκπαιδευτικά συστήματα. Η Ελλάδα πάντα είχε κάποια διαρθρωτικά προβλήματα στο κομμάτι αυτό. Προμνημονίου, να το πω, γιατί εμείς στην Ελλάδα έχουμε χωρίσει την περίοδο όπως χριστιανοί υπό Χριστού, μετά Χριστού. Χριστόν, εμείς λέμε προμνημονίου, μετά μνημονίου. Οπότε, προ-μνημονίων, η ανεργία των νέων ήταν περίπου στο 25%. Αυτή τη στιγμή που μιλάμε, έπιασε το 50%, αυτή τη στιγμή έχει αποκλιμακωθεί λίγο και έχει φτάσει στο 46%. Τώρα, μην αναλύσω την αποκλιμάκωση, διότι η αποκλιμάκωση βασικά στηρίζεται σε πολύ φθηνή, μαύρη ανασφάλιτη εργασία. Μεγάλο κομμάτι, μην το πιάσω τώρα, θέλω να μπω κατευθείαν στην ερώτησή σας. Οπότε το ζήτημα της μετάβασης και της δίκαιης μετάβασης, όπως πολύ σωστά το είπατε, μας απασχολεί τουλάχιστον 10 χρόνια. Αυτή τη χρονική περίοδο δεν αναπτύχθηκαν ούτε αμυντικές κοινωνικές πολιτικές για αυτούς τους ανθρώπους, ούτε βεβαίως και είχαμε και ένα κοινωνικό πλαίσιο στήριξης, που όπως πολύ καλά είπατε, το οποίο συνεχώς βαίνει μειούμενο και μειώνεται για την υποστήριξη αυτών των ανθρώπων, αυτών των κοινωνικών ομάδων, οι οποίοι βρίσκονται σε αυτό το στάδιο της μετάβασης από την εργασία στην ανεργία, με μεγάλη ύφεση και είναι πάρα πολύ δύσκολο να εξανεταχθούν. Ειδικά οι μακροχρόνια άνεργοι και ειδικά οι ηλικιωμένοι 45 και άνω, όπου είναι ένα μεγάλο ποσοστό της ανεργίας στη χώρα μου, έχει πάρα πολύ μικρές πιθανότητες να επανέλθει στην αγορά εργασίας. Τώρα, πώς τα εκπαιδευτικά συστήματα θα μπορούσαν ή τα συστήματα επαγγελματικής κατάρτισης θα βοηθούσαν προς μια κατεύθυνση μετάβασης από την ανεργία στην εργασία. Όσον αφορά τους εργαζομένους, προφανώς αυτά τα συστήματα μπορούν να παίξουν ένα σοβαρό και αξιόλογο ρόλο για τη μετάβασή τους από την ανεργία στην εργασία. Ωστόσο, είναι σημαντικό να υποθεί ότι σε αυτό το χρονικό διάστημα υπάρχει ένας μετασχηματισμός της οικονομίας μας, από την, ας το πούμε, σε μια οικονομία χαμηλής προστιθέμενης αξίας, που παράγει χαμηλές ειδικότητες, που ζητά χαμηλές δεξιότητες και βεβαίως αμείβει πολύ χαμηλά και το μόνο που είναι υψηλό είναι οι εργασιακές σχέσεις, η ευελιξία των εργασιακών σχέσεων. Παρ' όλα αυτά, όλο το κομμάτι της ψηφιοποίησης της οικονομίας ή της κλιματικής αλλαγής και της πράσινης οικονομίας, είναι προφανές ότι δημιουργεί νέες ανάγκες για δεξιότητες, νέες ανάγκες για εξειδίκευση, για ανανέωση και εξυγχρονισμό των δεξιοτήτων του ανθρώπινου δυναμικού. Ειδικά στις περιπτώσεις που ολόκληροι οι κλάδοι, όπως είπα και πριν, δεν υφίστανται πια, είναι σε απόλυτη ύφεση και θα πρέπει ο εργαζόμενος να αλλάξει επάγγελμα, ειδικότητα, ακόμη και κλάδο. Εκεί οι πολιτικές ανάπτυξης δεξιοτήτων, επαγγελματικής κατάρτισης και κυρίως συνεχιζόμενης επαγγελματικής κατάρτισης, μιας μορφής κατάρτισης περισσότερο ευέλικτης, όπου δίνει δεξιότητες για την αγορά εργασίας, διότι ο ρόλος των εκπαιδευτικών συστημάτων είναι διαφορετικός. Αν μου δοθεί ευκαιρία, στη συνέχεια θα πω κάτι. Θα πρέπει λοιπόν να υπάρχουν ισχυρά συστήματα επαγγελματικής κατάρτισης για να μπορεί να δώσει τα εφόδια και τις νέες δεξιότητες στο εργατικό δυναμικό, να μπορεί να μεταβεί σε νέες ειδικότητες, νέα επαγγέλματα ενδεχομένως και νέους κλάδους. Τα συστήματα επαγγελματικής κατάρτισης μπορούν να παίξουν αυτό το ρόλο. Τώρα είναι ένα ερώτημα αν το ελληνικό σύστημα επαγγελματικής κατάρτισης μπορεί να παίξει αυτό το ρόλο. Είναι μεγάλη συζήτηση. Η πρώτη μου προσέγγιση είναι όχι, δεν μπορεί να παίξει αυτό το ρόλο έτσι όπως είναι στημένο, έτσι όπως είναι δομημένο και στην ουσία με αποκλεισμένους κοινωνικούς εταίρους και κυρίως τους εκπροσώπους των εργαζομένων. Και με αυτό κάνω γέφυρα στο κομμάτι του κοινωνικού διαλόγου που με ρώτησες. Κατά πόσο ο κοινωνικός διάλογος θα μπορούσε να παίξει ρόλο για τη βελτίωση αυτής της υφιστάμενης κατάστασης και για την βελτιστοποίηση της ποιότητας των συστημάτων αυτών. Είναι προφανές, είναι αυταπόδεικτο ότι ο κοινωνικός διάλογος μπορεί να παίξει πάρα πολύ σημαντικό ρόλο, διότι οι οργανώσεις των εργαζομένων έχουν πάρα πολλά να δώσουν εκεί και να δεσμευτούν. Επίσης, οι οργανώσεις των εργοδοτών μπορούν να δώσουν και με μια διαβούλευση και διάλογο με τις επιχειρήσεις και το κράτος θα μπορούσαμε να βρούμε μια κοινή συνισταμένη προς τη βελτίωση των συστημάτων επαγγελματικής κατάρτισης, ανάπτυξη των δεξιοτήτων του εργατικού δυναμικού με στόχο την επανένταξή του στην αγορά εργασίας. Ο κοινωνικός διάλογος γενικότερα, αλλά και ειδικά στο πεδίο αυτό, δεν λειτουργεί. Δεν λειτουργεί, κατηγορηματικά το λέμε. Ποτέ κάποιο Υπουργείο, κάποιος κρατικός φορέας, είτε είναι εργασίας, είτε είναι παιδείας, καλεί τους κοινωνικούς εταίρους για να καταθέσουν τις απόψεις τους και να καταθέσουν και τις λύσεις που δίνουν σε αυτό το σοβαρό πρόβλημα. Αυτό το λέω διότι θα μπορούσαν πραγματικά να βοηθήσουν, γνωρίζοντας πολύ καλύτερα την αγορά εργασίας και τους κλάδους και τα μέλη τους, τα οποία από την εργασία βρίσκονται στην ανεργία και να προσφέρουν ουσιαστικά. Οφείλω να πω ως μια καλή πρακτική ότι πέρσι, πριν 2 χρόνια, υπό την αιγίδα του ILO, του Διεθνούς Γραφείου Εργασίας, έγινε ένα project όπου το αυτοχρηματοδότησαν οι κοινωνικοί εταίροι για το θέμα της ενίσχυσης του κοινωνικού διαλόγου στα ζητήματα της επαγγελματικής εκπαίδευσης και κατάρτισης. Έκλεισε αυτό το πρόγραμμα, το οποίο έχει πολύ ωραία παραδοτέα. Όποιος θέλει μπορεί να μπει στα site του να τα πάρει, είναι και στα αγγλικά. Και με μια μελέτη και με ένα policy paper, το οποίο συνυπόγραψαν οι πρόεδροι των οργανώσεων, παρουσία του Υπουργού Εργασίας και παρουσία του Guy Ryder, του Γενικού Διευθυντή του Διεθνούς Γραφείου Εργασίας. Έχουμε κάνει ένα βήμα προς την κατεύθυνση να εξυγχρονίσουμε το σύστημα, ωστόσο είμαστε ακόμα σε αυτό το πρώτο βήμα. Δεν θέλω να πάρω άλλο χρόνο. Αν θέλετε κάτι άλλο, μπορείτε να με ρωτήσετε.
We still have some time for some questions. I have a question for each one of you, actually, and I will start with Steve, because when you were talking about what has happened before, how do they deprive people of their collective rights and things, how did they attack the unions, how did they destroy the public services, etc. Two questions. First is very short. Are you meaning that they were preparing the world for the new thing that is to come, and they want to arrive with a society that is deprived of absolutely anything and any possibility of contestation for the future that they want? Were they shaping the future rather than the present? That is one question. And the second is, since you were talking about some political issues in a very daring way, do you think that the other day at the DGB Congress, Reiner was talking often about the, I don't remember exactly how was it in English, but something like the autodetermination of the big data and things like that of the world. Do you think, when you are talking in this future, that also, if one can talk in historical socialist terms, since part of the production, part of the goods, it's our own life in the big data and things like that, do you think that we should also return to claim the ownership of the media, the production media, for the working people? Those two questions.
Yes and yes. Yeah. Two very simple answers. The Thatcher governments in the early 1980s worked in an axis with the Reagan administration in the United States. And I mean, all of this started with the coup in Chile, of course, in the 1970s, this whole advancement of neoliberalism, the experiment for neoliberalism that Thatcher and Reagan then took on with Feist. Thatcher in the European Union, not just in Britain, of course, with her advances there on the attacks on social policy. And, of course, Reagan in North America and the export of the interests of capital around the world, and the whole world economy transformed into a neoliberal economy. Largely, of course, there are always individual states that are exceptions to that. So, absolutely, there was an experiment going on laying the foundations for a neoliberal attack on trade unions, collectivism, working class communities, to keep us in our place. Absolutely, we see that as being going back to that period in time, and it's what's laying out now through the European Union, and the institutions of the European Union are no different. They're neoliberal, and they're advancing the interests of neoliberal capital, and they'll only respond to power and organisation in opposition to that. So we need to build power and organisation internationally. That's our view. And should we reclaim the commanding heights of industry? Absolutely we should. And this is one of the discussions we're having with Jeremy Corbyn and our Labour administration, of course. Soon to be, we all hope, a Labour government, is about intervention. Absolute intervention. And I think that will take us into conflict with the European Union, about state support for industries, about investment in industries, about supporting jobs and skills and communities that rely upon industry, and good, decent jobs, actually. And I think that the attack that will come from the European Union, and if not the European Union, the WTO, will be around global capital and interest in competition, fair competition, and no role for the state in intervention. So I think we have some huge challenges ahead of us. Should we renationalise those things that are important to us? Absolutely we should. Absolutely we should. And in government, will we do that? Absolutely we will.
Very, very brave to answer that way. People usually are scared about mentioning those things.
Not at all.
Yeah.
Very proud.
That's
of
good.
Our history.
Then I have also a couple of questions for Esther. In this, one is regarding health and safety, and the other one collective bargaining. But in the same in the same way. We are talking about this future that no one of us knows how it's going to look, but it could be very much a place with no factories anymore, or we are factories, or we are offices, because people might work from home. The same company could have maybe a worker here in Athens, the other one would be in Madrid, the other one can be in Marrakesh. So in this very, very diluted world, where there is no working center as it used to be, first of all, how do you think one could take care about so important issues such as health and safety? And the other one is regarding the collective bargaining, because you were talking about these agreements at global level before, but it seems that in this very complex and very global world, what we understand as a global agreement sounds too poor for the thing that it can really be needed, that it would be, actually, there is something that says that they might look like a national agreement just on a global agreement. And this, of course, has a lot to do with all trade unions, if we are willing to give that to a supranational union like the ETUC and so on. But how do you see this?
Okay. So I think the first thing to remember about platforms is online platforms, so somebody goes on either to find work as Deliveroo or as a plumber or as a care worker, and then all of a sudden everybody gets confused about where the workplace is. And I think that's a very deliberate attempt by the platforms to say, well, this is a grey area, we don't really know, because it's a very simple question to answer. Where is the workplace? It's where the worker is. It's actually really, really, really one of the most simple things. And with new technology, you can know exactly where the worker is by their mobile phone or their Fitbit or whatever they have on. I think that there are two then more challenging questions for us in the arena of health and safety and Industry 4.0. One of those I'll explain is this. So as we all have to work older, can you imagine, I often think about this, so I imagine myself in a hospital bed and a nurse who's in his or her 70s comes over to try and lift me up in the bed. And I think it would be so much easier for that worker if they had a machine help them do it. And I think that's the good piece about Industry 4.0, is that you'd have the help of a machine, so you would save your arm and your back, exactly as Sharon was talking about. I think the piece where trade unions need to get really involved now, though, is about what is the way that machine thinks about the work that it's doing. And I think that's really important, because I'm sure a lot of you have seen newspaper articles where they ask the question, would you prefer to be in a driverless car if it will kill you or kill the pedestrian? And that's the same question that machine is going to answer in the workplace. And if we don't get the ethics right now, that machine will have arrived in the workplace and no longer will be bolted to the floor or in a cage. It will be touching you. It'll be picking you up. Worse, it might be feeding you if you're the person in the bed. So we want to make absolutely sure that the ethics underpinning that are right, which is a piece of the work that Sharon, in relation to the future of work and the whole Brains Trust, as we rather grandiose call ourselves, are trying to look at, is that what are the workplace ethics that we want to include in that? And then your second question is a very fundamental one. And I had it recently. I don't know if you've all heard about the General Data Protection Regulation. You know, all the emails you've seen coming in to say, click here if you want to stay involved, yeah? So there's a very interesting question on that, which is we could, as a European movement, have a code of practice for how trade unions comply with the GDPR, with that piece of regulation. We could have that as a code of practice. How the unions would keep their members' data, when consent is needed, when it's not needed, all of those things. But we could only have that code of practice established by the ETUC if the ETUC could examine and make sure people were complying with it. And I said, well, I can only imagine the amount of work and the amount of discussions we'd have to have. But I think as regulations are European level, as more and more companies operate at the level of the EU or internationally, we have to find some way so that national level, we keep our autonomy, we make our own decisions, but we've got to find some way to bolt it together with what unions are doing in other member states. And I think that will be one of the big discussions that the ETUC will be having at its upcoming conference next year, which is how do we, have trade unions without borders? How can we help each other be a lot more successful so that, so that if we're trying to do one thing in one member state, that doesn't get undermined by what somebody else is doing, or worse, the employer says, for example, as we're trying to do with the pay rise campaign, is stop employers saying, well, if you look for a pay rise here, I'm going to go across down the end of that very good road into another member state and set up shop there. So by trying to make us all coordinate our pay demands to make sure that by having an EU-wide demand for a pay increase, that we would begin to stop us all being played off against each other at the level of the member state.
Okay.
It's not easy, though.
No. And it doesn't look
for any of us, it's not easy, yeah.
I want to ask Christos now, because I was actually realizing in this panel there is somebody from Greece, somebody from Ireland, somebody from Spain. There is only missing the Portuguese colleague to be that horrible thing that you remember that they used to call us once, pigs, and they thought it was very funny. I'm coming from Spain. I have absolutely nothing against pigs. Opposite, I love them. But it was a very, very nasty way of describing a way of living and a way of working. And I don't know if it's the same thing that happened in here, but we have been told in Spain, okay, there was this thing called social elevator that actually was the best way of moving in the social elevator. It was through education. Working class people, humble people that were making an effort in order for the children to study, had good opportunities in life, and hence had a better living. And we have been told in Spain, I don't know if it was the case of Greece after the memorandum, that we have been producing too many students in the university. We have far too many people with a degree and very low-skill educated people. At the same time that you see that this overdose we have of people in university, it's not that they don't want them, because they want them in other countries. We export them like we used to export something else. I don't know if it's the same case as in Greece, and I don't know if you have the impression that part of the memoranda, or part of the thing that was behind the memoranda, was also that Greek working people will have less resources as for training and education means in comparison to other European colleagues. So Greek people at the end will stay where somebody has decided they have to stay and not move forward.
Καταρχήν να πω ότι και στην Ελλάδα το ίδιο γίνεται. Πήγαινε στο σχολείο, πήγαινε να σπουδάσεις για να έχεις ένα καλύτερο μέλλον στη ζωή σου. Και θεωρώ ότι είναι πολύ λογικό, από τη στιγμή που αποδεδειγμένα η εκπαίδευση και το εκπαιδευτικό σύστημα, ένας από τους βασικούς τους ρόλους είναι η καταπολέμηση των ανισοτήτων, η ισότιμη πρόσβαση σε αυτήν και μέσω της εκπαίδευσης να μπορεί κάποιο παιδί, κάποιος ενήλικας στο μέλλον, να κυνηγήσει τα όνειρά του, το μέλλον του, ανεξαρτήτως ποιου κοινωνικού ή οικονομικού στρώματος είναι. Αυτός βασικά είναι ο ρόλος της εκπαίδευσης και αυτός, κατά την άποψή μου, συνεχίζει να είναι. Έστω και αν μέσα στα εκπαιδευτικά συστήματα πια, με όλες αυτές τις εξελίξεις τις οποίες συζητήσαμε σήμερα, μην τις επαναλάβω, θα πρέπει και αυτά να προσαρμοστούν ή να πάνε προς μια κατεύθυνση πέρα από την γενική εκπαίδευση ή την πρώτη γνώση και δεξιότητα, να μπουν και σε μια διαδικασία μεγαλύτερης εξέλιξης. Ωστόσο, σε αυτό το κομμάτι, με ρώτησες και είναι πολύ σωστά, θα το πω με ένα δικό μου όρο, αυτό που λέμε αναντιστοιχεία δεξιοτήτων. Δηλαδή, είπες κάποια στιγμή ότι και σε εμάς στην Ισπανία βγαίνουν πολλά παιδιά από το πανεπιστήμιο, αλλά δεν βρίσκουν δουλειά. Μήπως φταίνουν οι δεξιότητες που δίνει το πανεπιστήμιο? Αυτό στο δικό μας, ας πούμε, χώρο, στη δική μας επιστήμη, το λέμε και γενικά σε επίπεδο Ευρωπαϊκής Ένωσης και διεθνώς, ονομάζεται αναντιστοιχεία δεξιοτήτων μεταξύ αυτών που ζητάνε επιχειρήσεις και των δεξιοτήτων και γνώσεων που έχουν το εργατικό δυναμικό μετά το τέλος του εκπαιδευτικού συστήματος. Είναι μια μεγάλη συζήτηση. Κανείς δεν μπορεί να αρνηθεί ότι σε μια εποχή ψηφιακής οικονομίας που συνεχώς νέες δεξιότητες χρειάζονται, αυτή η αναντιστοιχεία δεν υπάρχει, από τη μια πλευρά. Από την άλλη πλευρά όμως, θεωρώ ότι υπάρχει πολιτική ατζέντα στοχευμένη που στοχεύει στην ιδιωτικοποίηση της εκπαίδευσης, η οποία πιέζει προς μια κατεύθυνση να αποδεχτούμε όλοι ότι υπάρχει αναντιστοιχεία δεξιοτήτων από τα εκπαιδευτικά συστήματα προς την αγορά εργασίας και πρέπει οπωσδήποτε να αλλάξει το εκπαιδευτικό σύστημα. Τι θα κάνει δηλαδή το εκπαιδευτικό σύστημα? Να είναι πολύ πιο συμβατό με τις ανάγκες της αγοράς εργασίας και να δίνει τις δεξιότητες που έχει η ανάγκη η αγορά εργασίας. Θεωρώ ότι σε αυτό το αέναο κυνήγι των δεξιοτήτων της αγοράς εργασίας δεν είναι δυνατόν, δεν μπορούν και δεν πρέπει να μπουν τα εκπαιδευτικά συστήματα. Τα εκπαιδευτικά συστήματα έχουν το δικό τους ρόλο. Είναι προφανές ότι πρέπει και αυτά να εξελίσσονται όπως εξελίσσεται η οικονομία και η κοινωνία, αλλά μέχρι ένα σημείο. Από το σημείο αυτό και μετά υπάρχουν άλλες πολιτικές, οι πολιτικές της επαγγελματικής κατάρτισης, των σεμιναρίων, της επαγγελματικής κατάρτισης εντός της επιχείρησης, την ενδοεπιχειρησιακή κατάρτιση, την επαγγελματική κατάρτιση σε κλάδους κλπ. Να αναπτύξουμε δηλαδή το σύστημα της λεγόμενης μη τυπικής εκπαίδευσης, η οποία στην ουσία τι θα κάνει? Θα είναι πιο συμβατή με τις ανάγκες της αγοράς εργασίας, θα συμπληρώνει τα κενά ή την ανανέωση των γνώσεων και των δεξιοτήτων που χρειάζεται η αγορά εργασίας και δεν είναι δυνατόν να δώσει το εκπαιδευτικό σύστημα. Και με αυτόν τον τρόπο μπορεί να καλυφθεί αυτό το κενό. Αυτό γιατί το λέω? Το λέω γιατί η συζήτηση στη χώρα μου τα τελευταία χρόνια, με έρευνες που δεν τηρούν επαρκές ή στοιχειώδες επιστημονικό, μεθοδολογικό πλαίσιο, λένε ελαφρά την καρδία και με πολύ δημοσιογραφικό τρόπο ότι το 65% στην Ελλάδα των επιχειρήσεων ζητά εργατικά δυναμικό και δεν το βρίσκει γιατί δεν έχει τις δεξιότητες. Η εμπειρία μου λέει είναι μέγα ψέμα, αλλά και οι έρευνες τις οποίες κάνουμε στο Ινστιτούτο στη ΓΣΕΕ το αποδεικνύουν ότι επίσης είναι μέγα ψέμα. Θεωρώ ότι υπάρχει πολιτικό διακύβευμα πίσω από αυτή την τάση, η οποία κάποια στιγμή είχε επικρατήσει στην επίπεδο Ευρώπης, Ευρωπαϊκής Ένωσης. Το διακύβευμα είναι η ιδιωτικοποίηση της εκπαίδευσης. Εκτιμούμε, η δική μας θέση είναι ότι ισχυρά συστήματα διάγνωσης των αναγκών της αγοράς εργασίας και κυρίως διάγνωση των αναγκών σε δεξιότητες, με προβολές τα επόμενα χρόνια, έτσι να ξέρουμε τι περίπου έχει ανάγκη η αγορά εργασίας, σε δεξιότητες, είτε επαγγελματικές είτε οριζόντιες, και πώς μπορούμε αυτές τα συστήματα εκπαίδευσης, κατάρτισης να τις καλύψουν, είναι η μία πρόταση. Και η δεύτερη πρόταση είναι ισχυρά συστήματα επαγγελματικής κατάρτισης, συνεχιζόμενης επαγγελματικής κατάρτισης, σύγχρονα, ευέλικτα, με νέες τεχνολογίες, στηριζόμενα σε επαγγελματικά περιγράμματα, με σύγχρονα προγράμματα σπουδών, με σύγχρονα συστήματα μαθητείας και πρακτικής άσκησης, με την προϋπόθεση ότι η πρακτική άσκηση θα λειτουργήσει ως ένας μηχανισμός που θα ενδυναμώνει την εργασία και όχι θα την αποδυναμώνει. Γιατί έχει γίνει και πολύ της μόδας τα τελευταία χρόνια η πρακτική άσκηση στην ουσία να είναι και καλυμμένη εργασία, με πολύ χαμηλές αμοιβές και χωρίς ασφαλιστικά δικαιώματα. Αυτή είναι, έτσι, σε 5 λεπτά που έχω, γιατί βλέπω περνάει και ο χρόνος, η τοποθέτησή μου σε αυτό. Και στο πλαίσιο αυτό θα ήθελα να πω, στο χρωστάκι από την προηγούμενη ερώτηση, ότι σε αυτό το κομμάτι οι συλλογικές διαπραγματεύσεις έχουν να παίξουν πραγματικά πολύ σοβαρό ρόλο. Να μπορούν να συμφωνήσουν εργαζόμενοι και εργοδότες ποιες είναι οι δεξιότητες τις οποίες χρειάζεται η αγορά εργασίας για τα επόμενα χρόνια και μάλιστα να μπορούν να συμφωνήσουν και πώς αυτές θα γίνουν και θα καλυφθούν. Και ενδεχομένως γιατί όχι και οι ίδιοι να τις καλύψουν. Είναι πολύ σημαντικό αυτό να γίνει όχι μόνο σε εθνικό επίπεδο και σε ευρωπαϊκό, γιατί όπως είπαμε η αγορά εργασίας είναι συγκοινωνούντα δοχεία. Και ένα τελευταίο που θέλω να αναφέρω σε σχέση με την αναντιστοιχεία δεξιοτήτων. Στη χώρα μου τα τελευταία χρόνια έχουμε περίπου 400.000 νέους που φεύγουν, μόλις τελειώσουν το τυπικό εκπαιδευτικό σύστημα, την τριτοβάθμια εκπαίδευση με τις μεταπτυχιακές σπουδές, που φεύγουν από την Ελλάδα και πηγαίνουν σε χώρες της Ευρωπαϊκής Ένωσης. Το λεγόμενο φαινόμενο brain drain. αυτοί οι άνθρωποι δεν μένουν στη χώρα, διότι δεν μπορεί αυτό το μοντέλο οικονομικής ανάπτυξης που, όπως είπα και πριν, στηρίζεται στη χαμηλή προστιθέμενη αξία και στη χαμηλή γνώση, στους χαμηλούς μισθούς και στη μεγάλη ευελιξία, δεν θέλουν καν να μπουν στη διαδικασία να ψάξουν στην αγορά εργασίας στην ελληνική, πηγαίνουν στην Ευρωπαϊκή Ένωση, όπου εκεί δεν έχουν κανένα πρόβλημα με αντιστοιχεία δεξιοτήτων. Πολύ εύκολα βρίσκουν εργασία. Αυτά.
We still have, because Gabi left, so we still have some minutes left, and I don't want to, maybe this question was not intended for this panel, and I don't want to dishonor the secret rule of hospitality, especially in Greece, but I would like to ask you a very short question to the three of you. We are celebrating the 100 years of the ΓΣΕΕ. Your organization is 150, 930. All in these events, we were talking about the Industrial Revolution on that time and the importance it had, for example, for the 8 hours work. So if we are looking at the future, and this is the same question for the three of you, on the verge of a new industrial revolution or world revolution, who knows? And on the occasion of these anniversaries that we are taking, what do you think is the next big step that trade unions, the next flag trade unions should have? A numerical, if you wish. I don't know if it's the 5-hour working hours a day, if it's about salaries. What do you think trade unions should really flag for? And you start, Esther.
Okay. Yeah. So I think the biggest issue is the security of work. That so much has gone wrong. It's the case now that having a full-time secure job is like a status symbol. It's no longer taken for granted, it's what you would get. And I think the mountain we have to climb and put our flag in is that one, to make jobs a lot more secure, to make sure that people have pensions, to make sure that if they're sick, that they're not going to be able to not afford the rent because the contract is so fragile. So I think that's for me is the first immediate mountain, is to try and make work more secure.
Okay.
For me, it's not really about work, I don't think. I think it's about how we fulfill our potential as human beings. And I think social and human rights, citizens' rights, are not necessarily based on the right to work. I don't believe that we're born to work. I believe we're born to play a full role within our societies and across the globe. And I think new technology, the advancement of innovation, fourth generation, and a rapidly changing economy gives us the opportunity to grasp, actually to get control of the wealth that we create. There's been a huge concentration of wealth in the hands of fewer and fewer individuals, let alone big corporations. And I think the big challenge for us as a movement is redistributing that wealth, both as trade unions and as political organisations, to enable us actually to fulfil our full potential as human beings. And I think we have an opportunity to do that, and we should take it.
Για μένα το μεγάλο διακύβευμα είναι τα συνδικάτα να είναι πραγματικά χρήσιμα, να είναι πραγματικά χρήσιμα προς τα μέλη τους. Αναλύσαμε όλοι πώς αποδυναμώνεται η εργασία, πώς αποδυναμώνονται συλλογικές διαπραγματεύσεις και μέσα από την αποδυνάμωση και της εργασίας και των διαπραγματεύσεων έρχεται η αποδυνάμωση των συνδικάτων. Ο στόχος αυτών που σχεδιάζουν αυτά είναι τα συνδικάτα να μην έχουν ρόλο ύπαρξης. Και δεν θα έχουν λόγο ύπαρξης αν δεν είναι χρήσιμα. Και στα μέλη τους, και στους εργαζόμενους και στην εργασία. Οπότε θεωρώ ότι θα πρέπει στην εσωτερική συζήτηση που γίνεται και στο εσωτερικό των συνδικάτων να βρούμε τρόπους και διακυβεύματα που τα συνδικάτα θα είναι πραγματικά χρήσιμα και για την κοινωνία και την οικονομία και για τους εργαζόμενους. Εάν είναι πραγματικά χρήσιμα, θα ενδυναμώνονται. Εάν δεν χρειάζονται, δεν είναι χρήσιμα, θεωρώ ότι θα μας ξεπεράσει η ιστορία.
So thank you very much to the three of you. And now the tablet is working. So, ευχαριστώ, αγαπητοί συνάδελφοι και συναδέλφισες.